analysis with over 70 years combined experience. This is the Bob Ryan and Jeff Goodman podcast. NBA, some college, a little bit.
You're listening or watching the Bob Ryan, Jeff Goodman, Tanguay Along for the Ride pod, a proud member of the CLNS Media Network. The show is brought to you by PrizePicks, North America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Download today and use code CLNS to get $50 when you play $5. PrizePicks. Run your game. Okay, guys, order has been restored. Bob, your thoughts on game number 2 of the NBA Finals?
I think most of us expected at least a 6-game series. I think most people would agree to that. And we're on our way. You expect, you don't guarantee a solid bounce back performance by the team that has lost game 1 at home. And it was a bizarre game, odd, historical game 1. We know that. And we look for most of the game, we assumed that they were the better team, at least that night, until the last seconds. Last night they were, after an early exchange, they made a point. Breen made a point that there's one lead exchange in game 1 at the final second, and we had 4 in the first couple of minutes of game 2. Okay, and then after that, OKC asserted its superiority, went on to win handily, but they didn't embarrass the Pacers. They showed a little signs of life that there might be a little bit of a comeback. I mean, they didn't give up. They once again showed their mettle. My big takeaway was the bench, the performances by Caruso and Wiggins. You forget about Wiggins sometimes, at least I do, and how good he can be. And I didn't realize until last night, Jeff, did you know, Gary, that he once had a 41-point game? I didn't know that. So Aaron Wiggins was good, and Wiggins and Caruso were a combined 9 for 16 on threes off the bench. As much as anything else, that may have been the story of the game.
Well, I thought part of the story was Haliburton again, just kind of feeling out the game too much and not understanding you need to be an alpha. And by being an alpha, that means you got to, especially on the road like that, they're going to come out hungry, OKC. You got to match their intensity. And sometimes I feel like that's what separates Tyrese Haliburton from being one of the true superstars in the game. Is with Shea, you know what you're going to get every night. Every night he's going to do it. With Haliburton, you don't know half to half, game to game. Now, obviously, he has delivered in the biggest moments in the playoffs. You can't deny that. What you can deny is that he's an every quarter, every play player.
To prove conclusively what you're saying, I have an astonishing factoid. His second field goal attempt of the evening came when the score was OKC 79, Indiana 64. He had taken one shot in the game.
That can't happen.
Boy. Now, and then Richard Hamilton was all over that, which is good.
Yep.
He was going. And here's what I remember. I had a smile to myself. I said, if this were Bob Cousy, when we used to go to practice when I was at BC every day, and we got used to Cousy's, everything. And he used to say, when a guy was passive, say, present yourself. And all I could think of last night was that Haliburton has got to start presenting himself much earlier in the game than a point when you're down by 15 in the middle of the third period.
Yeah, I just don't understand it. I mean, I know he's kind of a lax guy a little bit, but this is the NBA Finals. You're supposedly the alpha dog here.
Yeah.
And instead, you're deferring as much as he was. I didn't like it at all.
Here's the other thing, but this is all sports, whether we're talking about baseball, football, basketball, hockey, whatever. Where was Rick Carlisle in that one? Now, we're all praising Rick Carlisle. We all love him. We all think
get up into him. Get up into him.
But
yeah,
he's got to see this, feel this, and say, hey, present yourself.
Yeah.
Come on.
You know who did present themselves? Chet Holmgren early.
Oh, you did.
He presented himself, right?
9 points in the first quarter after a 6 point first quarter game in game one when he was relatively invisible. But he made himself known at both ends of the floor right away. Good for him.
I wonder if the mentality with the Pacers was we're happy to get a split.
Let's hope not. But I was thinking about how many times over, I've seen this stuff for 50 years, literally. That coming away with a split in that regard is very satisfying for the most part. And I'm sure, by the way, they can rationalize that, but they shouldn't be thinking in those terms while the goddamn game's going on.
Right.
I don't think they're thinking. I don't think you're thinking that way, Gary. I just think it's kind of human nature to not feel the same level of pressure as if you had lost game one and you're potentially going down 0-2, as if, hey, you know what? We're in pretty good shape here. We're in pretty good shape. It's probably a little bit what the kid Sinner did in the championship match in the French Open.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jeff, let me ask you first. There was a sense of complacency. Do you feel that Haliburton is the type of guy that has to be in an urgent situation? Because he has not been this player throughout his entire career.
No, he's not a killer. He's not a killer, but based on what he's done in this playoff run, a lot of people, I think, would quantify him as a killer, and having that killer instinct. But that's not really who he's been. He's kind of a chill dude, super nice guy who has just made big shot after big shot. So therefore, you get this, basically this honor bestowed on you because you keep doing it. But again, like you said, Bob, as much as this is on Haliburton, it's on the veteran of veteran coaches, Rick Carlisle, to grab him on the bench and say, hey, MFer, no more of this shit. No more of this. Like, you got to shoot the ball.
Did he not follow up that history-making game against the Knicks, 34 points, 12 assists, no turnovers, by scoring 8 points in the game after that?
Right.
I believe it was. So this is a recurrent pattern. He's too nice. I think
too nice, too comfortable, because as we all know, if you want to point to the great ones, and I'm having a hard time coming up with a great one now. I mean, LeBron is still in the game, but we know that he's not the same. But, whether it's Larry or Magic or Michael.
I mean, Steph would be the one you could talk about. Steph,
thank you.
We got another guy coming up that he's, that has flashes of true greatness, and we think, and he's got the instinct. This would never happen with the Ant-Man. I can tell you that.
Right.
But what about Shea? But what about Shea across the way? Every game, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander comes to play and makes his imprint on the game from start to finish.
Yeah, no, this is I think it's a personality. It's an interesting story because Haliburton is in the busy of writing history, 4 game-winning shots at the end of in a one playoff series, and we're not even done yet. And we know how good it's interesting. But this is who they are right now. Now to what degree can he change? And what's it going to take? But this is, look, I keep coming back to the difference between There's a difference between Michael and LeBron in that age-old argument that we never stop having about the GOAT, right? And I keep saying Michael didn't win until we learned how to share, and LeBron didn't win until we learned how to defer and stop deferring and be the best player on the court, which you are most 99% of the time, talent-wise. So do we have another circumstance here where SGA has the Michael killer instinct and LeBron and Haliburton has to get, LeBron-ized? He's got to get it out of his system and start being a little more assertive and presenting himself more often? It's a question. We just
only Bob Cousy, the great Bob. That is a great quote. Only Bob Cousy, because we know Bob Cousy is a very elegant guy. He is. He's a very smart guy. He's very eloquent. Would say presents in a practice.
And I know, and of course, what accentuates it with the accent.
Well, yeah, sure.
I mean, when Cousy and the R's used to say, "Tully, don't dribble." And
yeah.
But so those of us, those of us who lived through it, I mean, this is a very small audience that,
Oh,
that would appreciate what I just said about it and laugh and smile and say, oh my God, I remember Cousy saying that. But I can tell you that there are old friends of mine from BC who would relate to that immediately. And present yourself. And I just jumped out at me last night. That's exactly what Cousy was talking about. It's 55
Tommy
years ago.
Heitzen would not use the word present.
Well, he had other words he used no, I mean, he was a master linguist, by the way. He put a word in my head that no one ever uses, inculcate. He used the word inculcate all the time. Nobody uses the word inculcate. But
I've never even heard it.
Yeah, it's inculcated is put something into being, make something happen.
Okay.
That's kind of what it is.
How big now, Gary, how big is game 3? Because I feel like now game 3 becomes kind of a must win, which I know Bob's going to probably push back at me and say it's a long series. It can't be a must win when you're tied going into game 3. But I just feel like for their confidence, for their, and almost to take away what Oklahoma City can gain in momentum by winning game 3. I almost feel like Indiana's got to win this one.
Well, I think, Bob, I want to just if I could jump in for a second. We know what Bob's going to say. I think the circumstances make it different. I think generally it's like, okay, it's not the end of the world. However, because of what both of you have just said about the Pacers' number 1 player, because that changes it to me, where they let him up off the mat. I know it's only 1-1, but they had both, and I know it's early, but with that win, they had both shoulders on the mat. It was kind of like the Knicks coming back in game 1 against the Celtics. Yeah. They got that confidence. So then you let them back up off the mat in game 2. You got one shoulder down, you let one more shoulder up. And Bob, if you go back to Indy, and if Indy loses game 3, you've let OKC completely off the mat.
Well, the fact, and to amplify what you were saying, the fact remains that OKC has led 98 or 99% of the time of the 2 games.
Right.
Because after leading all but 3 seconds of the first game, literally all but 3 seconds, they led probably the last 47 minutes, not 44 to 45 minutes of game 2. Once they took the lead at around 9-7 or so, that was it. There were no more ties. There were no more lead changes.
All right, we got more on this coming up. I'll ask another question about the series. Plus, we're going to get into Bob's got some story time for us, and also the USA versus the World All-Star format. PrizePicks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. Hey, you know ball, right? That's right. We're watching the only series that matters right now, the NBA Championship. That means time is running out for you to put in your final takes on PrizePicks, the best place to cash in on your favorite sports. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So what are we thinking? Haliburton, is he going to bounce back more or less than 20 points? SGA, more or less than 8 assists? How about more than 4 threes? Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. Okay, looking ahead, Jeff, your thoughts on Game 3 and what has to happen for the Pacers. Obviously, we agree they need to win, but how do they do it?
I mean, Haliburton's got to come right out. He's got to come right out and assert himself, especially with the home crowd there. Get him going, get an early lead. I do love that he gets everybody involved. Like that is the beauty of Haliburton, but you've got to be able to balance it and have a better feel for when you need to assert yourself as the star, the best player in the court, at least for that game. And he needs to do that. And he can't wait too long. Like, you just can't wait too long and hope to dig yourself out and get this special play at the end of the game. You can't do that.
No, that's not that is not a reliable winning formula. No, there's no question. We all know that. And we know they're not consciously doing that, just the way they just have demonstrated that they can extricate themselves from these holes. But obviously, you can't keep doing that. No, but I do think, I don't know, the odds makers will probably still favor OKC by a couple of points or so. But I think it's certainly Indiana going home. I like them in Game 3, but I can see this. But what do we know? Nobody knows anything. That's what William Goldman said about Hollywood, and I think we're usually proving this true about sports. But no, I just think it's shaping up, guys, to be the series we thought it was going to be. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, right now, I think it's shaping up to go at least 6.
Let's hope.
7, and I'll be very surprised if it doesn't. That's all. I'll be very surprised. Oh, right. One more guy I want to say something about. Yes. I want to give a shout out to a player because I am learning about him. We all are. I mean, I know I am as the season unfolds. Isaiah Hartenstein. He made a play last night that reminded me of 2 people that I know that wore green and white uniforms. That if they made the play, we'd be singing their praises, right? Those 2 people are Dave Cowens and Larry Bird. He went on the floor at 7 feet tall, got a great retrieval on the floor, and and then got the pass out. Caruso finished off the play with a 3. Okay, it was 7-footers. I mean, I can categorically say, don't make that play as a rule. No, don't make that play. And he made that play.
Huge pickup for them.
This guy also then later on who was the passer on a big alley-oop. He alley-ooped one for Holmgren later on. He's an excellent passer of all types, and he's got that little floater down, boy. Does he have that down or what? Yeah. That 6-foot floater? He's got that down. He's not a great player, but he's a useful player. And I have a category of big guys. I call them MUB, useful bigs. And I used to give out an award, the MUB of the season every year, the most useful big. And, now the bigs have been phased out of the game, in a sense. But he's reminding you that there's still a place for a useful big. And so good for him. Isaiah Hartenstein.
Well said, Bob. We'll get back to the guys in just a minute, but we want to tell you, for those of you listening and watching the show, we ask that you subscribe to the podcast, like and leave a review. And again, if you're watching show on CLNS, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to the Celtics All Access YouTube channel, where you can find our show and a lot of other great Celtics content. Also, please make sure to turn on your notifications so you know the instant a new video drops. All right, let's get back to the experts. Okay, Bob has been following this story, Jeff, the U.S. World Format. Bob, you have some thoughts and something you'd like to add on this?
Well, I think that what people should do, I mean, I can't give you all the names, but I took a little time to put down a conceivable roster. Here's the thing about the game that I think makes it difficult to get people to want to go along with it, and the American side. And the Players Association, I think, would have something to say about it. In a conventional All-Star game, you got 24 players, 12 and 12 on the each side, right? Okay. Well, if we got 12 and 12, that means instead of 24 Americans, we're down to 12. And I'm not sure that would that'd be very difficult to please people. But in terms of those 12, I brought a list of potential. I'm just going to rattle off some international names, and you tell me how good your team you think this could be. All right, Jokic, Doncic, Antetokounmpo. I just gave you Hartenstein, Siakam, SGA, Jamal Murray, Lucian Dort, Domantas Sabonis, Joel Embiid. How's that for openers? Not bad, is it? Rudy Gobert. Oh, Victor Wembanyama. Okay. Markkanen, I figure first name. Okay. I like their chances in this game. What do you guys think?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, when you look at it, I'm looking at, I think this is last year's game. Might have been 2 years ago. There were like 4 or 5. You're right. You're right from the standpoint that right now, of the 24 guys, probably 18 of them are American. So you'd lose 5 or 6 probably American-born players, but at least you'd have a little pride in the game, maybe. Well, at least you'd have a little bit of they would actually play maybe with a purpose.
Well, they could lose. That's the thing. I mean, Bob's point is,
that's all.
you bring out, so you bring out LeBron, Tatum, Brown, and if they want to mail it, even if they go out and play the stupid ball, right, and they just goof around, the states could still lose.
Oh, no, I don't think the issue. I think that if the game were to take place, I don't think it would be a problem with the Americans' motivation if the game were to take place. And it could take that it could very well happen next year. From what we not know, they haven't settled this thing yet. My only point was that they would reduce the number of Americans that would be in the game and be called themselves all-stars, and how big that would go over with the Players Association. That's all I'm saying. Okay.
Well, Bob, don't you think though? I mean, trying to think off the top of my head. Isn't it easier, Jeff? I'll ask you first. Isn't it easier to come up with an international roster than a United States roster?
No. If you look at it, you look at first team. I'm looking at the All NBA teams right now. First team, yes, Giannis, Shea, Jokic, they're all first team. After that, Donovan Mitchell, Tatum. Second team, Brunson, Steph, Ant, LeBron, Mobley, all American. Third team, Kate Cunningham, Haliburton, Harden, Cat, Jalen Williams, all born in the U.S. So you can certainly come up with a roster here. Obviously Luka's on there too. That's 4. You could get to 12 with good players, but no, it's still American heavy when you round it out to the top 15, 20 players.
Okay, here's a question.
Who would win?
Here's a question for you. Oh, well, who's the best American-born big man at the present time? Who?
Mobley. Probably Mobley if you consider him. He's not a true big.
No.
But
Well, that's very telling. It's either he or Bam, in my opinion.
Oh, it's Mobley over Bam. Over Bam. Yeah.
That's pretty sad compared to what
Cat. Karl Anthony Towns is probably the true big, if you want to say, and but yeah, no, they're honestly, it's hard to find, and obviously you add. I think you put in that other team, Sabonis, your guy, right?
Damn right I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, I do too.
I think it would be a great game.
I agree. They should do it. They should do it. Try it. What do you have to lose? The other ones have sucked for how many years? Try something different. See if it works. If it doesn't, play around with it every year. Try to figure some way to make it interesting.
I don't see. I think it's the last hope. What else is there? Unless you're going to go. The only other solution would be NBA versus WNBA. I don't think they're going to get to that one soon. But anyway. No,
if they threw Caitlin in the game. Hey, if they could mix them up. Play.
It's the only solution.
Mix them. No, don't play against WNBA.
That would be
mix
cool.
The teams.
Hey, I like that.
I kind of like that.
I like that. I love that.
That's Co-ed All-Star
Thank you very
game.
much. I'm gonna file that one away. I like that one, Jeff.
Jeff, that's a pretty good idea. I'm just thinking from a marketing standpoint, because we all know the women's game is really doing very well right now. That's a great idea.
I mean, I just don't. The only problem with that is, again, do you see on a switch if you've got Evan Mobley on Caitlin Clark, like it's not going to be fair, like it's just not. I mean,
I get. It's almost like you'd want to do like an exhibition, type of thing. Like you don't want to do a true. Like if there was if you wanted to do something for charity in the preseason or something like that, to me, I think it could be cool.
Yeah.
I think it could be very cool. Anyways, all right. Bob, story time with Uncle Bob Ryan, as we have a very interesting matchup in the NBA Finals that made you think of the 1975 championship series.
Well, I think that when you're thinking about improbable results and upsets, you start with that one in 1975. The Bullets were coming off a 60-win season. Elvin Hayes, Wes Unseld, Phil Chenier, Mike Reardon, etc. And they had just beaten the Celtics in 6, and they, it was pretty authoritative, frankly. They beat them in 6. Golden State did win the conference, but they were 48-34. They were okay, but they weren't great. Rick Barry had a great year. Yes, he had a great year. But after that, it was a bunch of who he's for so many people. That was I mean, it was absolutely I don't know what I'd love to know what the official odds were, but I'm telling you. And Golden State goes and steals the first game. Now that was a strange one though, because what happened was there was a conflict about the arena, and they had a choice of whether they're going to go 2-2-1-1-1 or 1-2-2, and they chose to go 1-2-2, and they lost that game in the Cap Center. And so anyway, they were swept, not just beaten, they were swept, and it was stunning. And the guy who emerged out of that certainly got my attention was a rookie named Jamal Wilkes. Oh, he was Keith Wilkes. Still hadn't changed his name yet. He was Keith Wilkes, and he outplayed Elvin Hayes, giving him 4 inches and 3 inches and 40 pounds. They outplayed him, but Barry was tremendous in that series. It was a stunner, and suddenly Golden State the next year they romped through the regular season themselves, and then they were upset by Phoenix in the Western Conference Finals. But anyway, that 75, it was a real stunner. We weren't traveling to the West Coast for the finals in those days, but I did go to the 2 games in Washington, and it was really, really fun stuff. But there's some guys in that team people will never remember, named Frank Kendrick, Steve Bracey were among the guys on that team, but on the bench. But it was a showcase for Barry and for Keith Wilkes. But it was a historic Final Four game as well, because it was the first finals in which each were coached by an African American. It was Al Attles versus Casey Jones, and that was a history making right there.
I remember Clifford Ray, the future Celtic assistant, and from what I understand, oboe player.
That one, he wasn't. Yeah, he was something. Was oboe? Okay,
oboe player. I think I remember that he played the oboe.
Their center combination was Clifford Ray and George Johnson, nicknamed SWAT.
Right.
And good shot blocker, obviously. George SWAT Johnson. So that was, but that was, I mean, it was stunning. Nobody was expecting that. The Bullets, I would say they appeared invincible, but they were really coming off, high and mighty after they dispatched the Celtics. And
then that led to a broadcasting career by the very annoying yet intellectual, smart, basketball smart Rick Barry.
Rick Barry, whose whole post career was fascinating, but he was the most controversial personality in the league at the time. There's no doubt, and for many years thereafter. People. He outspoken to say the least.
Not well liked. Not very well liked.
He was the ultimate rub people the wrong way type guy.
Did not care,
and he's not a bad person. In fact, I'll give Rick Barry credit. Personally, I can't come down too hard on him because the following year, when the word was out that I was getting off the beat, and after the end of the finals in '76, Rick Barry came up to, congratulate me and say nice things, and so I'm a little bit compromised in that regard. But
we all are when somebody says something very nice to us, right?
So I try not to come down too hard on Rick.
Guys, great job. We'll do it again next week. You've been listening to the Bob Ryan, Jeff Goodman, Tanguay Along for the Ride pod, member of the CLNS Media Network. The show is brought to you by PrizePicks, North America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Download today and use code CLNS to get $50 when you play 5. PrizePicks, run your game. See you guys.
Good. That was
all
good.
Right.
Okay, this is the call to action part. 3, 2,